Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about my day one for the Kinetic Fusillade Ballista Hierophant. As expected, the build has been popping off completely during campaign, during maps. The only thing where I would really notice the nerf at all was come red maps, where I felt like I'm actually playing a normal build again, whereas last league, this build was like above and beyond whatever most builds could do. But I did feel that a little bit later on, and we're going to talk about some of the solutions about that. But the early game was completely ridiculous, including the fireball leveling, which I'm going to start with. So TLDR, if you're just about to start, fireball is amazing. You really want to mule a ranger with level 4 and get that volley, and then fireball is absolutely amazing with it. I even ended up cutting the elemental proliferation because it was just kind of overkill and I'd rather have a little bit more damage. So I replaced that with combustion, which should also be updated in the guide. And after that, I was just absolutely flying, and at level 32, I respec to Kinetic Fusillade Ballistas, and at that point, it was just smooth sailing all the way up to red maps. I also have 100 out of 100 maps completed, and I'm currently working on the invitations and the unique maps. First up, just so you know, I made a doc here with all the links that are important, the leveling, the guides, also the leveling regex that I used, then also a filter that I only used throughout campaign. Afterwards, I'm just using normal never sync, and then the snapshots that I will be showing in this video. If you want to look at them directly, you can also go through here, but I will, as I said, also link the PoE Ninja down below. Also have 2 Void Stones right now, which I'm gonna get the other 2 tomorrow. And yeah, kind of just like working on everything. And I'm going to show you a map real quickly, just a normie map that I'm currently farming. I got the tier 16s a little bit ago. And yeah, the build has been absolutely fantastic. I don't know what else to say. It is playing kind of like last league. The only thing that I also pointed out in the guide is we have to adjust for some of the attack speed with a Wilma's Requital, which will make you a little bit squishier, and that is felt for sure. The lane mechanic has some monsters that are a little bit rippy, but overall it's not the end of the world. Now I'm currently running red altars with shrines. I'm just doing Jungle Valley, and I'm just going through everything right here. Oh, I actually didn't even have to. Okay, I was thinking I was kind of slow. There it is, the haste. All right. So currently I'm actually running haste, and I could remove the purity of elements. We're going to talk about all of these swaps later and what I adjusted. Nice blueprint. And yeah, otherwise I'm currently working towards my Aegis setup to be a little bit tankier. And yeah, I already have my Light of Meaning, but this is kind of how it looks like. Now, topics in this video are going to be progression gear. I have a snapshot from how my gear looked at level 60 and at level 80, so we're going to go through that. My current setup, I am currently at level 93, almost level 94. And also the Wilma's respec, so obviously once you get this unique helmet, some things will change. Crafting with the new mechanic, I'll have you some tips. I made this wand, which is pretty shitty, but overall it's quite okay. And I made this body armor. And after that, a few things to avoid that have to do with the lead mechanic. But let's first go over my early progression. I will link this down below in the description, but you can just look at PoE Ninja and all my setups. This was hour 6. This is me basically coming out of the campaign. Yeah, I bought a Toad Raise, I bought a Prism Wave with the few chaos that I dropped, and as you can see, every bit of gear has flat damage, fire damage, lightning damage, whatever you can get. That is the most important thing everywhere. I actually forgot to craft it on the amulet, but it should also be there, and spell damage on your shield, and that's that. Double Quicksilver, nothing else fancy. After that, I went on to yeah, farm some more stuff and have slightly better gear. Here I have a 5 link. Actually, that's still the same wand. I think that is just literally me going through red maps, actually, and hour 18 is going to be a little bit more interesting. Yeah, so here I actually crafted a wand, which we'll talk about in the crafting video. But all in all, you need a crit roll. You need as much fire, lightning, cold damage as you can get. And if you can get an attack speed roll on top, that would be optimal. I didn't have the currency at the time. And otherwise, life on every single piece of gear. And I mean every single piece of gear, because we don't really have any other way to get tanky. You just have to look at that. You can see I'm not perfect with that either, but I'm trying. So get 30% movement speed boots as soon as possible. And then I'm still using Prism Weave and Doters, although that will change soon. My body armor is complete trash, but I just bought the cheapest 6 link imaginable. 6 link is super important because it straight up just gives you critical damage support, and once you're respec'd into crit, that is around 35% more damage. Super important here, you also want to mix a quartz flask in here so you can actually rush through enemies. At this point, maybe I should have also mixed in a granite flask here because I actually didn't need the mana flask at all anymore. But yeah, the gems are exactly like in the guide, and that's about that. And afterwards, let's talk about the current setup with Wilma's. Now, this is what it looks like. The one I just showed you, I still have that one. I have gloves with attack speed, life. As you can see, life is everywhere. You have to fix your dexterity somewhere. On Amulet, if you can get crit multi, that is amazing, but also as much dexterity as possible. Shield, as much spell damage as possible, but also chance to block is your most important asset. And then resistances, life, you know the gist. Super important here are your flasks. If your flask setup is not good, then you're gonna suck. You're not gonna perfectly press them, so you want to automate them as soon as possible. So you want to save up for instilling orbs, which can automate your flasks if crafted on the crafting bench. As you can see right here, I have the enchant used when charges reach full everywhere. I went for suffixes like movement speed during effect, crit during effect, reduced effect of curses, and percentage armor is super important because at this point we want to start mixing in a little bit so that small hits will not destroy you. On your life flask, super important, corrupted blood immunity. Otherwise, you're going to get absolutely stomped by that because of so many hits. Also, try to get as much chaos res as humanly possible as soon as possible. If you are under 4k life, then start to solve that as soon as possible. If you have under 1000 energy shield, try to solve that as soon as possible. For example, with a really juicy body armor. If you can afford a sacred chainmail 6-link, I linked this myself with overfusing, so I got a little bit unlucky, but it is what it is, then that is optimal. A sacred chainmail has like double to what you would see early game. As for this passive tree, I'm in this weird scenario where I don't have Aegis yet, but I already have some of the other pieces, like for example, the Light of Meaning, which is my most expensive item that I have right now. I sniped it for very cheap early on. Now it's 5 divines. It is what it is. This Light of Meaning is just absolutely brutal. It's insane. So once you can afford that, your Aegis afterwards will also be really, really strong. Aegis without Light of Meaning is a little bit whatever, but that's basically that. Also, I forgot to mention anoint surveillance as soon as possible for your 6th totem. Otherwise, I went for all the block that I already talked about. There's nothing here that's really out of the ordinary. I'm currently sitting at, that is not correct. I'm sitting at 78% spell block and 54% attack block. Do note that I also have 5% attack block in my implicit on the chest. For your skill setup, once again, super important that you get your less duration in a red socket and have it at 20 quality, 20/20 as soon as possible, and then have your Kinetic Fusillade in the blue socket, although this one is less important if you have to prioritize something. Next up, let's talk about the Wilma's Respec. Wilma's Recruital, very strong. Increase and reductions to cast speed applied to attack speed. So if you can fit, for example, haste into your setup, that means you get a ton of extra attack speed because not only the attack speed, but also the cast speed counts towards it. How do you fit that in though? You have to cut Purity of Elements. That means a few things. First, you need Core Ruins for freeze immunity on your Pantheon. You can see it right here, Tanner Lightheart. And this league, he is down below here. He's at Core Ruins, which is bottom right, and it's a tier 6. And once again, Divine Vessel, and then you get the buff. And the idea is if you're freeze immune and then you also have Tempest Shield anyways, because you want to get the spell block, you're also shock immune from that. So Purity of Elements kind of loses its purpose. The one thing that it does do though is provide a lot of res. So you have to kind of compensate with your gear. So you have to get better gear. So you're still capped and maybe even a little bit overcapped. But what makes it easier is you have to remove Dodora's Tenure anyways. Now, this will remove a lot of spell damage, so you really have to make sure that you have spell damage on your shield to compensate for that. If you didn't have that already, just make sure you have that. Otherwise, that will feel pretty rough. But the problem is the reduced cast speed will actually screw you over with Wilma's into your attack speed. So you don't want that anymore, whereas before it didn't have a downside. So you replace it with life, resistance, armor, whatever you can. Attack speed's very strong. And then, as I said, you remove the Purity of Elements for haste. Another thing I want to mention is that I don't have Ancestral Bond anymore because note how it is on Wilma's Recruital, so you're also saving a point. Also, Wilma's has a lot of accuracy rating, so if you were relying on a shitty ring for accuracy, you can now cut that one, and you're probably still going to be on 100%. As long as it says here beyond like 93, 94%, you're totally fine. The top line always has to be on 100 though. Another thing I want to remind you is if you're dying a lot, you have to pay attention to the map modifiers you have. There's a reason why a lot of people do, for example, while they're progressing, blue maps sometimes yellows, but very specific ones. They're throwing certain maps away. It is because they want to get XP, and some of these modifiers are just, they're not made equal. So for example, reduced block chance is completely insane. It will eradicate you because that is kind of all you have in mid game. Enemies have increased crit chance. Crit strike multiplier is runnable, but it's not preferable. Players have minus max, same thing as the crit. You never want to run block chance. These are like okay if it's the only annoying mod. Reduced effect of non-curse. This one you can run if you're not running Purity of Elements anymore, but if you're capping your resistance with Purity of Elements, once again, you're going to get completely destroyed. And down here, everything that has to do with recovery is also going to make it really awkward, with the bottom mod just being an absolute no-go, and this mod being okay if the rest of the map is not too hard. Now, if you haven't done the League mechanic yet, I would highly encourage you to do so. You just do it up here, and with Valerie, the rest she will explain to you. Down here, you have your crafting station with Vesper. This one is quite important for your gearing process. So you can see right here, you can actually put an Exalted Orb in there. This is only an example, of course, but it is pretty crazy what you can do with this. So for example, let's say I wanted flat damage here of any type. You could pay the Deadman Sulfide, which this amount of Sulfide is currently 1.5 Chaos. That's it. You click on it and it tells you creates 4 ghostly copies. So now instead of having to get lucky on your wand, so for example, here I slammed on the percentage lightning damage, which wasn't very great, but it would have been better than a complete brick, right? So I slammed it with this mechanic. So what happens is you craft it and then you can see all your available options. In this case, you got pretty screwed. The most important thing though is that you can actually block modifiers. If you're crafting prefixes, you always want to block mana because it's the worst one with the highest weighting that you want to take away. It cannot roll anymore. And in the suffix, it's definitely int. But I'll show you a better example of a good wand craft in the next few days, maybe next time or the day after. In terms of Atlas, the progression atlases are always the same. You take every single bit of map progression node, increased effect of maps. Make sure that you go over here to Kinetic and you actually purchase items. So you can see right here, all these maps you can actually buy to progress. And that is about it. What I'm currently doing in mid game is I'm actually throwing in some of these blueprints, some farming for blueprints, and I want the special implicits. But overall, I was doing a lot of the lead mechanic, wasting a lot of time, so I haven't really progressed all that much myself. Red Altar, as always, extremely good way to make some bubblegum currency early. Now, 2 things I want to talk about at the end here that can make it awkward for you throughout this league is, number 1, if you have a Merc that you summon and it has Malevolence, you will actually get skill effect duration, which can break your character. It can break your Kinetic Fusillade. So just make sure that your Merc does not have Malevolence. And then also in some very rare cases, the Ghost chest that you open that gives you attack and cast speed can break you, but that is only under certain circumstances and only very rarely. So if that ever happens to you and your totems act all weird all of a sudden, just portal out of the map and portal back in and the ghost is gone. But yeah, that's about all I got for today. I still have to dive into the Lee mechanic. There's still so many things I don't understand. I have to pimp up my character a little bit, like get it somewhere where I'm extremely happy with it and I can actually clear harder content. So I'm going to show you guys how that looks like in the next update. As well as that, I will be re-rolling on probably day 4, day 5, so I will already be saving up for that. But until then, Kinetic Fusillade, absurd progression build. But yeah, hope you guys had a good league start. I heard some people had some problems with Luminary, so hopefully that can be solved soon, or maybe already re-rolled. I will be looking into Luminary eventually, but right now I'm not really all that into it. I do like what they did to Mercenaries though. It's just a little bit, yeah, not on league start. Maybe when I have currency. But either way, with that being said, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.